Well, as you can see from the video, I got them out. The springs and the brackets are out. I've got a new concrete apron that's been poured behind the shop, and I will explain to you how that's affecting me and how I got the spring brackets and springs out of the frame. Welcome to part 55. Bring you back. I'm over here to the air suspension. Pulled it back out away from the truck after yesterday. I'd moved it back over closer to the truck so we could get my grandson's truck in here and put it up on the lift. So I pulled it back out this morning, just working on trying to get some of this stuff apart. It's rusted up and just needs some heat, penetrating oil, and got the 3/4 inch breaker bar out there. Needs some big leverage on it. I'm going to set it up on the tripod and just show you some clips of it as I take it apart. Okay, so I've got the shocks off. The good one is over there, the bad one's over here. This one is just rusty. It's that upper housing on that shock. The rod, actually, the shock rod, even though it's bent, is still in good shape. It's still very clean. But anyways, when I took it apart, took this shock off, this frame member detached from that airbag because those bolts have been cut on both sides. Now this one is still holding it on, but what I'll do is I'll pull that off of there. I'll pull that off of there, and then I'm going to start working on the front brackets on the frame rails. I brought the tripod over here, but the other camera had been sitting around for a while and the battery dies on it, so I've got that on charge. But as soon as it gets a charge back into it, I'll set it up on the tripod and show you kind of some of this working on this. What I might do right now is shut you off, pick this up as far as I can with the forklift truck, and see how those airbags detach from the bottom of that cross member bracket that's for them. Actually, the boulder nut, whichever it is, I can't really tell by feeling it. I think it's a nut on a bolt. Underneath that airbag is actually inside of the channel. So what I'm going to do is set it back down again and re-sling it so that the arms come up with the cross piece so that it's up higher in the air for me to take apart. Okay, so here I am the next day, and what I did is I've got one side off, the frame rail off of the support, got the support bracket for the air suspension off of the frame rail, let's put it that way. I'm going to start working on the other side. They had torched some of these bolts. I actually had to get the torch over here because what happened was they tried to cut some of the nuts off of the back side of it, and what they did, they had big globs of like slag on it, so I couldn't get the bolts to draw through it. So I actually had to bring the torch over, clean up some of the cuts a little bit so that I could get some of the bolts out. I'll bring you back. Okay, there we go. Got both frame rails off. What I'm going to do is see how hard it is to get these brackets off of here so that I can like test fit them up against the frame. But let me clean some of this up, get some of this put away. I'm going to save some of the things on this. I'm probably going to save the rails for the fifth wheel. This bracket over here is actually a bracket for the panhard bar. I didn't get the panhard bar. And then there's a couple of, looks like bump stop brackets. There's one on this rail and one on that rail. I'm going to probably save them, take them off, and in case I have to use them. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to, unless I can find a panhard bar that fits that bracket. I'm not sure if I can use them brackets, but in the event that I could, I'll have them. Okay, brief little video here of what I got going on. I've discussed this thing before, told you that I really was having issues getting these things out. They wouldn't hammer out, wouldn't do anything. You know, my thought was to take the plasma cutter, burn off the heads and stuff like that. What I ended up doing is just taking a cold chisel and cutting the heads off with a cold chisel and a hammer. But I couldn't drive them through. So what I ended up doing, again, I really don't want to get in there and try and burn through with a torch or plasma cutter. I don't want to introduce a lot of heat into this frame. Okay, let me just insert this little clip in here. You may think it's kind of ironic that I didn't want to introduce heat into the frame back there for where those rivets were, when I had cut the frame, inserted and welded a section of it in here. But let me get into this later. What I did in that section, as you know, is I welded it and then I double framed it or double plated it. Now, what I didn't want to do is introduce heat into the frame where there was going to be a suspension bracket held, where there would be a lot of weight at that point, or a lot of stress at that point from that axle bracket being mounted there. So I really didn't want to add weight for that reason. But let me explain it further when I get into more clips on what this. What I ended up doing is taking a Sawzall, and what I did is, I told you that I got them heads up a little bit. I opened up a gap with the chisel in order enough to get the blade down into the top part of it. Now, understand that this bracket goes underneath and there's rivets that come up through it. So even if I get this off, I still can't get it off. So what I did was, because of those rivets down there, what I did is spread this apart, stuck a Sawzall blade down in there, metal cutting Sawzall blade, sheared off the top two of them, level or even with the frame, and then opened it up a little wider. Now I've got a Sawzall, and I went down in there and got the bottom 2 rivets off. But what I've still got is the 4 rivets that are up from the bottom through the bracket into the frame rail. So what I have done, got the heads off of them, kind of ground them out, tried to pound those through because those are, I thought maybe they would come through. Nope, no luck with that. So, okay, so the 4 rivets that go through the sides are out. What I'm going to do now is take a mallet or a sledgehammer and try and pound down on that, because I've got the heads of those rivets off. Hopefully it'll just draw those rivets down through it. But I'll bring you back and show it to you after I'm done. Okay, I wanted to bring you over and kind of show it to you. I pounded on it a couple of times, and as you can see, the rivets are going down through the bottom. The bracket is going down a little bit as I hammer on it. So I'm going to keep doing it and see what happens. I think I'm just going to take that jack up from underneath the bottom of it and hammer on it and let it fall. Well, that was kind of uneventful. Uneventful in the fact that it only took me about 3 whacks to get that thing off of there. Okay, so you saw that what I'm going to do is end up doing the same thing on the other side. I cleaned that up a little bit. I took a wire wheel to it, got most of the rust and scale off of it, and then took a flapper disc to it. But that's not why I brought you over here. Brought you over here, I wanted to just kind of show you, and hopefully you're going to be able to see it. When that came out, apparently the frame twisted in. So what I'm going to do is I'll get a punch in there and realign that bracket, whether it's a bracket or the frame twist. What I'm going to do is get a punch in there, realign those holes, and put a bolt in there, or maybe a couple of bolts in there, just to hold it so that it's aligned properly. Now, it's very possible that bracket might come out, or it might be possible for it to stay. I'm not really sure. It's a good frame support bracket, both for top and angled plate on the bottom, holding the frame rails spaced apart and keeping them from twisting. So if I can at all possible to keep it, it will stay there. But if it's in the way of anything, the air suspension or anything else, it'll have to come off. Okay, I'm over here the passenger side of the truck, and I just got this off. I got it down on the ground, and there is the frame before I've cleaned it up and wire wheeled it and put the flapper disc to it. But this side was a lot harder to get off than the other side. For some reason, those rivets on the bottom held on a lot stronger than they did on the other side. So I had kind of a bitch of a time to get it off. Got the rivets sawed up with a Sawzall, and it was hammering on it, and it just wasn't going anyplace. And so it took me a long time. And actually, what I ended up doing, ended up breaking the sledgehammer, but well, it's not really broke. I'll show it to you in a minute. What I did is got it started a little bit, got a little bit of a gap down there, and put a chisel in the gap on the bottom of it, and kind of wedged that chisel in between the frame rail and that bracket, and was able to draw it out a little bit that way, actually. And at the end rivet, actually got that to draw through the frame, and then once I got that started, could reposition the chisel and hammer it a little more, and then hit it a couple of times with a sledgehammer and it came off. But it took me quite a while to get this thing off of there, quite a while. There's a handle off of the sledgehammer, and there's a head over there. It didn't really break, the head just came off of it. But anyways, get this mess cleaned up, get this thing cleaned up, and bolted down like I did on the other side to hold that frame in place. And that will be it for that. And what they did is poured a concrete apron out behind my shop. As you can probably hopefully see there, it's so sunny that they just poured that. So I've got to give it a couple of days to cure before I could get in here, bring over that air suspension, get this thing out of here, get the axle moved out, bring over that air suspension, and try and get that test fitted up in there. Again, you got to wait for that apron to dry though. So again, they just poured this concrete apron, and it's been a couple of days, but he doesn't, or I don't really feel that I should be driving the forklift truck on it with some weight on the forklift truck. So I'm not going to be able to bring that suspension over here for probably a couple of more days. Bring the suspension over here, probably move this axle out for a while. Will I get the suspension over here? But so what I did is I kind of made a template of the bracket of the air suspension, and actually if you hold the template up, it would actually fit back into relatively the same space as it did. Even though the frame is tapered, that bracket would probably still fit in there. So what I've been doing is kind of thinking about what I'm going to do. I talked to you about that I didn't want to introduce heat back here because this is the main anchor spot of the suspension, and I really didn't want to compromise the frame in any ways. And again, it is tapered here. What I think I'm going to do is put a liner on the inside of this frame. Now, it's not going to be a channel liner, it's just going to be a piece of plate steel. And it's just going to be done so that I can have rest assured because of two factors: the taper and the amount of holes that are in it to begin with. So I don't think that I will have an issue, but I would rather be safe than sorry, tell you the truth, and just do it. So what I'm gonna do is probably go about 4 feet. So it's probably gonna go back, and what I'm gonna do is I'll just cut it. The top will be straight, the bottom will be angled up like the frame rail is angled up, just to fit in there, and it'll be a plate. The bracket will be bolted through both plates, and then the plate will be anchored front and back. Front, back. So I'm pretty happy with it, and I actually think I'm going to be able to keep that brace in there too. As I had said, I actually ended up putting a couple of bolts in that. Got to do the same thing for the other side. But I'm fairly happy with it. Now, not a lot of progress is getting made because, again, the concrete apron, and I've been doing a lot of hauls lately, just short hauls, but they kind of consume the entire day. So as soon as things calm down with the hauling, his fall gets here, closer to here, and things calm down, I'll have more time to spend on this. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like button, subscribe.